Hi, Rupert here from DSP Mastering, and in this video I'm going to share with you my top 10 list to help you prepare your tracks for mastering. This information is relevant to any mastering service and not just mine. Number 1 is finish the mix first. Now this might sound obvious, but it's important that you're happy with the final mix before sending it off to be mastered. If something seems slightly out in the mix, the chances are by the time you get it mastered it's going to stick out like dog's balls. And once you've submitted your mix, that's it. Any additional changes will alter the overall level and balance of the mix, so don't assume your mastering engineer can just bang it through again with the same settings. In reality, it really does need to be re-evaluated in its revised state. Now, if you have the time, I recommend you spend a few days or a week away from the mix. Don't listen to it at all, then give it a final listen to make sure you're 100% happy with it before sending it off. And finally, don't worry about it sounding loud. That's the mastering engineer's job. Just turn up your monitors and worry about it sounding good. Point number 2 is clear the master bus. Remove any master bus plugins like compressors or maximizers and limiters. If you've found a sound that you really like with master bus processing, just send a process copy clearly labeled as reference with the unprocessed copy. This will help your mastering engineer understand your intention. If you're experienced and you're adamant your master bus processing is integral to the sound and not the loudness, just be careful not to overdo it. By taking the dynamic range into your own hands, you're restricting your mastering engineer who has invested a lot of money in the best quality tools specifically designed for this task. Point number 3 is leave some room for the room. Leave some silence at the beginning and the end of the track to allow reverb tails to naturally dissipate. Don't make your fades too sharp. Your mastering engineer can always shorten them, but he can't make them longer. This becomes particularly important when making judgments in context of an entire album. Point number 4 is master at 0. For reasons of math and stuff, your master volume fader should be set at 0 dB or unity gain. Point number 5 is leave some headroom. Your track should be peaking at about -6 dBFS. After removing your master bus processing and setting the master fader at 0, reset and check your peak level indicator at the loudest point. If you're peaking at above -6, then reduce your levels at the channel faders, not the master. Highlight all of the channels together when reducing the level to keep the mix intact. Point number 6 is use the native sample rate. If you've recorded everything at 16-bit 44.1 kHz, export at these sample rates. Don't export it at a different rate, as any sample rate conversion that is unnecessary should be avoided. If you're working on an electronic project where the synths will be printed on export, you can use 24-bit 96 kHz. Point number 7, export to an uncompressed format like .wav or .aiff, not MP3. If you use a lossy codec like .mp3 or .aac, some of the information in your music is being removed and we can't get that back. For best quality sound, always send uncompressed files to mastering. Point number 8 is dither. You don't want to apply dither till the final 16-bit bounce, so let your mastering engineer take care of it and just don't apply dither. Point number 9 is don't normalize. Being normal is highly overrated. Point number 10 is communicate with your mastering engineer. Tell us if you struggled with a particular element of the track. Is the album going to CD or only online? Is there a particular sound you're striving for? Do you want to sacrifice a little loudness in favor of greater dynamics? Maybe there is a similar song you want to try and model your sound on. All of this information helps your mastering engineer to understand your intentions and get you both on the same page, which will result in the best end product that you should be happy with. Now I want to add 2 bonus points here that relate more to mixing than mastering, but they're so helpful I do feel compelled to mention them here. Mixing tip number 1 is to compare to a similar professional track. Unless your project is so groundbreaking it's without peer, find a similar professionally released track and use it like a reference to guide you as you go. As a released piece of music will have already been mastered, don't try and match it on volume. Reduce the level until it feels about the same as your project. Again, we're focusing on making it sound good at this stage, not loud. Mixing tip number 2 is high pass unwanted bass. This technique can be effective on some tracks to remove the muddiness and increase clarity of your bass. Although we may perceive them as only high frequency, even sounds like hi-hats can have a small amount of low frequency content. Use a high pass filter, which allows the highs to pass while cutting out the lows, to remove any low end taking up valuable bandwidth down the bottom there. While setting the frequency of the high pass filter, make sure you check your settings in context of the whole mix and not just soloed. Of course, every project is different. We need to be very cautious of blanket techniques like this, and the old disclaimer goes, you need to use your ears first, etc, etc. But in my experience, putting a high pass filter on every channel bar the ones you want bottom from, like the bass and the kick, can provide a positive improvement on most tracks. Okay, hopefully this video was helpful to some of you. If you have more questions about this, feel free to email me, rupert@dspmastering.com. That is it for this video. I am Rupert Brown from the DSP Mastering Studio, wishing you all the best on your next musical adventure.